Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Stryker, LuckyEevee, and Mathmachine. Today is our 26th episode, and we're discussing 2015's Jurassic World for our first ever theme month of Jurassic July, so let's get things started. Now, Jurassic World was not going to be Jurassic Park 4 originally. I remember reading Jurassic Park 4 was announced around 2006, 2007, and it was going to be, no joke, about the military creating dinosaur-human hybrids. I have no idea how that would have turned out. I have no idea who would have been in it, if they would have gotten like Alan Grant or Ian Malcolm back, or if they would have had a new character.
I don't want to see that now.
What the dinosaur-human hybrids would have really looked like. But regardless, that idea was scrapped, and the franchise lay dormant for a while, until 2015 when this came out. And this is the start of what is basically considered the second trilogy of the franchise, the Jurassic World trilogy, if you will. The movie still has a mixed reception, and even when it came out, critics were kind of mixed, but I personally enjoy it, and I always have ever since I first saw it. And this is actually the first of the Jurassic Park franchise that I actually managed to see in theaters.
Nice.
And it is a real great experience on the big screen like that, I'll tell you. So yeah, the movie opens after, of course, the opening titles with the raptors slowly hatching out of the eggs. And, of course, it's a great way to get you back into the world. And then we have a really good, like, a bait-and-switch gag where it shows, like, a giant pair of talons landing on the ground. You're thinking, oh, God, what kind of dinosaur is that? Before it pans up, and it's just a bird.
Holy
like a little sparrow,
shit, it's a dinosaur.
Yeah. I had to bring up that meme, yep. That's a classic. Definitely one of the first ones you think of when you think of the franchise. So yeah, we're introduced to our two child characters of this movie, and they only appear in this one. Unlike Lex and Tim, they don't show up in Fallen Kingdom or Dominion, the two sequels. Gray and Zach, and I feel like Gray is more of an interesting character than Zach, in my opinion, because I just feel like the wonder that Gray has over the dinosaurs does kind of more of a hook to the audience rather than the cynicalism of Zach. Now, they do play off each other well. I will say that much. They do have a good dynamic between each other, but I feel that one problem with this movie, and really the rest of the Jurassic World movies for me is the human drama. Those, in the originals, they were there, but they felt organic. They felt like they were necessary. In this one, and the two following it, it just feels so shoehorned in at a lot of the moments to where it's like, why are we even watching this? Now, in this movie, it's not nearly as bad as it would be later on in the Jurassic World sub-franchise.
I'll say Cretaceous was a thing.
We are going to talk about that probably next July for a one-off Jurassic July episode, unless they make Jurassic World 4, because that's going to come eventually someday. These make like billions of dollars at the box office, so they're going to find ways to make more of these. But yes,
absolutely they are.
Yeah. Part of the enjoyment of this movie for me, and because of course we get there sooner than later in this movie, is that we actually get to see Jurassic World as a fully functioning theme park. We get to see like the actual attractions. We get to see like the shopping area and that. And it feels so real. I honestly would watch this movie if it was just a normal functioning day of Jurassic World where nothing went wrong. Because to me, it is just so appealing in a way that I really can't even describe it. It just feels like you can actually go there. Like it just feels so realistic.
Yeah, the only downside is shit goes wrong.
Which it always does in these movies. It always does. So yeah, we're introduced to the character of Zara here when they arrive on the island, and she doesn't really get much to do. Apparently, she had a little bit more of a subplot originally, but it was cut out. And she really is kind of a flat character, and she's only known for one moment, which we will get to later on in the episode. And there are a lot of nice little references when the boys get on the island, like for the first one, when they're on the monorail going into Jurassic World, you can see someone reading a book by Ian Malcolm, which is, again, a nice touch. And of course, the part where Gray opens up the doors and it shows the park with the Jurassic Park theme song is really, in my mind, just a perfect encapsulation of the appeal of the movie, at least to me. So yeah, Claire first appears after this scene, and she's a good character in this, but in the sequels, I feel like they kind of don't know what to do with her after this one. And again, Bryce Dallas Howard, she's good in it, and well, we'll talk more about her figure in the next episode for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But in here, she's basically a typical corporate CEO whose main duties, of course, is to run the park and keep it financially secure and that. And the one aspect of the movie that it does seem kind of unrealistic is the idea that people get bored with dinosaurs. Because they have a line where they say, oh, seeing a brachiosaurus is no different than seeing an elephant at the zoo. It's like, but it's still a brachiosaurus right in front of you. I really cannot see how that would make sense in the universe,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. And of course, we see it. Sorry, go ahead.
I've kind of equated it to them thinking that how people are on the internet, where we latch onto something and then in the time span of a week we're already bored of it and we're moved on to the next thing. I think that they're trying to equate that to how people would be if dinosaurs were genetically brought back.
Right.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that, yeah. So, of course, we get to see more of Dr. Wu, who was in the original Jurassic Park in 1993. And he has a much larger part in all of these movies. He's in the entire Jurassic World trilogy.
Yeah, we honestly though if they had gotten Dr. Ho, the dinosaurs would have had good backs, but that would have been downside for us.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So InGen is genetically engineering a new dinosaur, the Indominus Rex, and we'll see her later, and we'll definitely talk more about her and the other dinosaurs in a bit, but now we get to the visitor center, and there really is a lot of fun references here. Is that the Brachiosaurus in the original is now a giant hologram. The part where Gray plays like a DNA sorting game, like on a touch screen, that Mr. DNA pops up, and there's a giant statue of John Hammond in there. Now, Richard Attenborough really wanted to reprise his role as Hammond. He apparently would have been like a holographic version of Hammond rather. But sadly, he was a little too ill to record anything, and that really is a shame.
Yeah,
he
that's
really,
a shame.
really wanted to reprise his role as Hammond. So we get to see Claire meet her nephews, and she doesn't know anything about them or spends any time with them, which this really feels like something more from the 90s, so from movies like, say, Hook with Robin Williams, that did that whole, corporate CEO doesn't have time for their kids' whole subplot. I wonder if that was like meant to be in a draft of a script written earlier and they decided to put it in this one. Definitely is that thing about it. So
I can see that. But honestly, it was here okay, it's not terrible, but it has been done better in a lot of other things. Also,
exactly.
The kids bring up like drama and stuff. Like there's this one moment where they're talking about like their parents getting divorced and whatnot, and it's like, why?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It feels so undercooked. It's like it was put in there just so they could have some kind of a human drama element to it. Which, again, I feel like this movie, they could have done that a little bit better. It just feels like okay, we gotta find something to have them, character interaction other than, oh, cool, look at the dinosaurs. But to me, it just feels so shoehorned in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely shoehorned in.
Yeah.
The human drama in this movie reminds me of the human drama in the 2016 Godzilla movie. Except unlike that, the Godzilla movie realized, oh, okay, people didn't like that. They just wanted the giant monsters. Let's go with that. They do the exact opposite with the Jurassic World series.
Exactly. And we'll definitely talk more about how bad the human drama gets in Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. But for now, it's pretty all right. We get to see the control center, which reminds me a lot of the control center in the original 1973 Westworld. I wonder if it was an intentional reference because there was another Michael Crichton story about a theme park gone wrong. And it's a very good movie. I definitely recommend you check it out. There is a really good joke that I like about companies basically sponsoring dinosaurs that I thought was pretty cute because it is realistic as to what would happen. You know, you have stadiums named after companies, you have like sports teams sponsored by companies. Of course, they'd want to sponsor, dinosaurs.
Oh man, there's also this one guy in the Jurassic World that has memorabilia from like the original
Jurassic Park. And that too is something that's weird because where would you get that from? The island was completely abandoned after part 1. That there would be no Jurassic Park t-shirts in any state to be worn like that. They were all left on the island, basically.
Yeah, speaking of like forgetting the original movies existed, like I the whole time like they're telling us that like they're telling us that in this movie like there are animals that these are the last of their kind on this island, which I find dubious because did they forget Ilsa Sornar exists? Like there are still dinosaurs there, right?
I think they kind of bring that up in the sequel, but we'll have to see what happens when we do that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the island's owner, Mizrani, who is a nice comparison to Claire, and that how he's more like Hammond, and that he actually cares about the park and the customer satisfaction in a way that's more people-oriented rather than the cold corporate side of things that Claire is. But then they go to see, he flies the helicopter, which definitely comes into play later on in the movie. And then they go to see the Indominus Rex, who, I like that they do this. They take a page from Jaws and that they don't show what the Indominus Rex looks like until later. But we do know that she is super intelligent and extremely dangerous because they gave, the Indominus Rex a sibling, and it says that she killed and ate it. So she's definitely them playing, science. They're definitely playing like Frankenstein. They're playing God.
Oh man, it reminds me of that what you just said reminded me of that one scene from the Family Guy Star Wars episode, like the one where they were doing Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and like Chris is like going up to Peter, who Chris is Luke, Peter's Han, and he's like, "Hey, what'd you do with their dog we kidnapped?" And he's like, "I killed their dog and ate it." Yeah.
Oh God! Oh God! But yeah,
it's so hilarious.
I know.
I love it.
So yeah, now we cut to Owen Grady, played by Chris Pratt, and I guess this was the way for him to train with Yoshi. So for the Mario movie sequel.
Oh my goodness!
So yeah, the Raptors in this movie, they actually get personality for the first time since the original one. Now, Jurassic Park 3, they did have more personality than say Lost World. But this is the first one, aside, of course, from 1993, original Jurassic Park, that I feel that they really feel like actually, characters. And they're named, of course, Blue, Echo, Charlie, and Delta. And Blue will be the most predominant one in the sequels, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But the way that, he basically interacts with them is really well done. It is kind of realistic, although I will say one thing that... the hand motion to basically have the raptor stay away from you it does look kind of silly, especially in the sequels when they try using it for every single dinosaur. Like it's the universal sign to like a dinosaur not to attack you. You should just hold your hand out like a stop motion.
It honestly reminds me a bit of Crocodile Dundee and the whole like thing that he does to like get animals to calm down. Like does it with a cow. He does it with like 2 dogs coming at him, and he kind of does as a fake out for these street thugs.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So maybe it was intentional reference. So anyway, military man Hoskins shows up, and his thing is he basically wants to use dinosaurs in the military, which, if you know your history and you know that like the Soviets trained bears to fight against the Nazis and that, it could get really gruesome if you actually try to use like dinosaurs in the military. He's played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who is a great actor. He's in everything from Full Metal Jacket to Men in Black. And the one thing I will say about his performance, the second he steps on screen, you instantly think, oh, he's the main human bad guy. Yeah. The second he steps on screen, you're like, oh yeah, he's the villain. It's like there's really no nuance to him, which, I mean, you could say the same thing about Nedry and to a lesser extent Gennaro from the first Jurassic Park, but I don't know, there it seemed a little bit different compared to this. So anyway, Omar Sy is in this movie. He is an excellent actor. He plays basically Owen's assistant in this, and it's a shame because he's a fantastic actor. He's in a lot of fantastic French movies like The Untouchables and Monsieur Chocolat, and I highly recommend checking out some of his more dramatic roles because he is fantastic. He is another really great actor, and I feel like he's kind of squandered in this. So anyway,
it would be funny if he was in Amelie.
No, I don't think he really had a career back then, but regardless. So what happened is a worker falls in the pen and has to be saved by Owen. And of course, we get to see now the hand motion, which probably became one of the more iconic aspects of this movie, aside from another part, which we'll talk about later on in the film. But for now, this is the scene that seems to be referenced a lot or brought up a lot when you talk about this movie.
Keep your eyes on Blue.
Exactly.
Honestly,
so now we get back to probably again my favorite part of the movie, which is really just Zach and Gray going to the park and having a good time. It has stuff that's really neat, like the children's area where they ride on Triceratops, and they have like the zookeeper, like allowing kids to pet like the Compy, and we get to see the T-Rex feeding again, which is a fun moment, and it proves Alan Grant was wrong because T-Rex apparently does work on a schedule. And it doesn't want to hunt because Rexy is fine just being fed goats with flares and that. It's meant to be a surprise for the audience, but basically when you see it for the first time and you look at the model of the dinosaur, the CGI model, you're like, oh, that's Rexy from the first Jurassic Park.
It's not.
Yeah,
allegedly.
It's not.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, like I said, the Mosasaurus part is another really great sequence, and they feed the Mosasaurus a great white shark, which is a nice little Easter egg to Jaws. But then we get, again, you have all these fun parts, but then you get back to the human drama, which again has the relationship between Owen and Claire. It just feels so cliche, and it's like, I understand why they put it in. I mean, obviously, you had to have some kind of character, relationship with each other.
The power
Exactly. It feels really, really. It almost slows things down. Thankfully, there's not too much of it in this movie. And
Thankfully, yeah.
Compared
I
to
will
the sequels.
also mention the Mosasaur is kind of foreshadowing.
Yeah, it definitely does.
A little bit of Chekhov
with
gun.
how dangerous she is. And yeah, Owen is shown the Indominus Rex and realizes how dangerous she is and points out all the flaws that InGen did with keeping the Indominus Rex. For example, just having it really live in a pen and basically genetically modifying it to be basically almost insane. So the Indominus Rex appears to not be in the cage, but when Claire goes back to the control room, it turns out she was hiding in there all along, and she attacks Owen and the other couple of workers. And this is where we see her for the first time, and I will say this about the Indominus Rex. The Indominus Rex has a fantastic design. It looks really, really good. You can definitely tell that this was one of the standouts of the movies in terms of effects and where they put a lot of the effort into. And you can tell why, because she's so menacing and sleekly designed. Colors of the scales, even like, the eyes and that. It's just so piercing that I feel like the Indominus Rex really feels like a menacing villain in a way that the other dinosaurs really weren't. I mean, maybe the Velociraptors in the first one had the same kind of menace, but the Indominus Rex feels different because it's not just, with the intelligence, but it's also with size and abilities. So the Indominus Rex kills the other two workers, and this causes them to send out the security team in a really, really just fantastic sequence. We find out how smart the Indominus Rex is when she tears out her tracking chip from her flesh, and it turns out she can camouflage. And this is when we see her take on the entire security team, and she just wrecks them. I mean, this definitely reminded me a lot of Predator. I really wonder if it was an inspiration from the movie Predator when the Indominus Rex is killing all the security team.
I have really adored this sequence, actually.
Exactly. I'm just saying, it's fantastic. It really, really is a great sequence just to show how vicious she is and how just really how creative a lot of the kills are. There's the part where the one security one of the security members gets eaten, and the blood like trickles onto like the camera lens. Is a really, really just awesome sequence. And again, it really reminds me a lot of Predator, when the Predator was like slaughtering the rest of Arnold's team. It definitely seems like they took a lot of inspiration from that. So yeah, Claire and Irami make a pretty stupid decision to not kill the Indominus Rex with the military-grade weapons, and this will come back to haunt them in a little while.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. So now we get to see probably the most attraction that got the most amount of interest from the audience, so much that it appears in the next movie, the gyrosphere. And it really feels, again, this whole sequence feels like an amusement park when the worker is called and basically says, we're closing that section of Jurassic World. He just meekly talks to the angry crowd, and then he goes, come on, I don't control the ride, I just work here.
Yeah, I think that guy, I believe that guy was also in the Netflix A Series of Unfortunate Events, which is, oh man, that guy's a mood.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, the gyrosphere is a really nice touch, and again, it feels like an amusement park with stuff like the safety video with extremely obnoxious comedy by Jimmy Fallon. Then again, everything Jimmy Fallon does is obnoxious comedy, so there you go. Nothing else is accurate.
Yeah. Oh, wait, that was Jimmy Fallon?
That was
Jimmy
that
Fallon,
was him.
He was the host of the safety video. Like, you know how some amusement parks would have like people from like a movie or that actually do like the safety briefing of like the ride? That's basically what this is supposed to be like. Why they are playing it while they're on the ride is unknown, but hey, that is something that does happen in theme parks too. So now we come back to Dr. Wu, who, of course, Irami basically confronts him and is like, why did you do this? And Dr. Wu has a really nice touch where he says he only did what the bosses wanted him to do. They wanted cooler dinosaurs. They wanted more ferocious, more teeth. It's like, what did you expect would happen? They just got what they asked for, and it wasn't what they wanted. So now Zach does something that is pretty stupid by putting them in harm's danger by not returning to the resort and going off the path. We see a couple of Stegosauruses here, which are, again, a really cool touch, and they look a lot better than the ones from Lost World, which I will say in general, the dinosaurs in this movie look probably as good as they did in the first one. I will say that they do look probably almost as good as they... Again, all of the Jurassic World series has good effects, Jurassic Park series too, but this one feels like the gap between 2001 and 2015. You can definitely tell they have a huge jump from CGI from that time to this time, and it really works out well because the Indominus Rex appears and attacks the sphere in a great sequence, which is kind of like the Lex and Tim sequence from the original, but it feels like it has its unique twist on it that I do like. That, again, Zach and Gray are, they have the same reaction, but it feels a little different compared to Lex and Tim. Maybe because we know how much more dangerous the Indominus Rex is compared to, the T-Rex from the original Jurassic Park.
Oh, man. That also... wait, let me think here. I'm sure it'll come up later.
That's okay.
Continue.
So basically the boys escape the sphere and they get away from the Indominus Rex by jumping off a waterfall, and I want to see somebody do a mashup with this scene and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. How Butch and Sundance leap off the waterfall and the Indominus Rex is chasing them. I can't swim. Are you crazy? The fall's gonna kill ya. Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. That is one of my maybe top 20 favorite movies of all time. It is so fantastic, and I highly recommend it if anyone hasn't seen it. It is a absolute classic. But anyway, they jump out of the waterfall, and of course they escape the Indominus Rex, and Claire, having realized that, she's responsible for this in a way because, they got away from Zara and they went on their own. She goes with Owen to help look for them, and there's a nice little touch. I don't know if it was an intentional reference. she screams for, Zach and Gray exactly like how Amanda did in Jurassic Park 3. Unfortunately, we did not get to hear her say, "What's a bad idea?" But it still is a fun part nonetheless, if it was an intentional reference. So yeah, now, of course, they go searching for the boys in the jungle, but it turns out that Zach and Gray have made it to the remains of the original Jurassic Park. Now, I have to admit, this is a way probably for them just to point out a bunch of nostalgia stuff from the original, like, oh, look at that. But I'm sorry, I really think this sequence is cool. You get to see stuff like the "When the Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth" banner. You get to see stuff like the remains of the velociraptors from the original that are still, lying there, 20 plus years later. And you get to see the night vision goggles on a shelf, which is really cool.
I wonder if you can still get those nowadays.
That would be interesting if you could.
Yeah,
well,
oh man,
I'm surprised they haven't done that as like a merchandising, opportunity. It seems so obvious.
You want to know what's crazy? Like, I recall this one time when I went to the Houston Zoo where I saw this very unique little thing that was like a animal call, like a simulated animal call that had dolphins, orcas, and whatnot. That looked so cool, and I really wanted to get it because it would be really cool to go to the beach and try and call a bunch of dolphins and whatnot. Man, that would be crazy if I could actually go back and do that.
That really does sound awesome. So yeah, basically what happens is they manage to hotwire one of the original Jeeps from, of course, the Jurassic Park, and just as Claire and Owen arrive, and they're attacked by the Indominus. Now this sequence, too, is another really good one, how they just have to hide from the Indominus to show just how threatening she is. It's almost like in Lord of the Rings when, Sam, Frodo, Merry, and Pippin are hiding from the Ring Wraith in Fellowship of the Ring. That's how this really felt like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really what
the way
it
the
felt
Indominus Rex, peers over them, and that it definitely reminded me a lot of that part. So anyway, Irami gets into the helicopter because, as said earlier, he became a helicopter pilot, and him and a couple of other security pursue the Rex, and she smashes through the aviary where the pterodons escape. Now, one interesting touch that I actually didn't notice until this viewing, some of the pterodons have T-Rex and raptor heads. That implies that InGen have done a lot more genetic modification than we know about if they're doing stuff like that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it really is. And then, of course, they attack the helicopter. They kill the security men first, and they bring it down, causing Irami to spin out and blow up in a fireball. And now the pterodons go free, and this, to me, is the best sequence in the movie, the most iconic one in any case. When
my
the
favorite.
pterodons,
the scene that sealed this movie as my favorite.
Yeah, when the pterodons attack the shopping center, everyone is waiting, around, just wondering what's going on. Then they just have an announcement, seek shelter, and then they just go absolutely nuts. And of course, we have to, if we're talking about this scene, we have to mention the best extra in cinema history. When the pterodons start attacking, there's a guy in like a pink shirt and a baseball cap who his first reaction upon seeing a bunch of dinosaurs attack, take his margaritas and run off. It reminds me, it's like Homer on The Simpsons. I paid for my margaritas, and I'm gonna get my margaritas. He actually became a meme for a while. The margarita guy from Jurassic World. He's just like running off with them. It's like he's on screen for like 2 seconds with just something. It is so funny and so clever. It definitely had to be an intentional joke, but for such a tiny, tiny moment, it is one of the funniest moments to me. It's just the fact that guy and all the chaos, his alcoholic beverages are more important than anything else.
But yeah, it's like, holy fuck.
Yeah, priorities, man, priorities.
I mean, those are pretty good priorities, all things considered.
Exactly. So now we get to probably the most infamous moment of the movie, Zara's death, which is really extremely violent. It probably, actually no, scratch that. It is definitely the most violent of the entire franchise, easily. And it feels like with Zara, it's like the character didn't do anything to deserve this, and it really feels like shocking that a character like that would go out in that way.
It was fucking brutal. Like, it is the most brutal
She's
death
swept
in
up
the
by
whole series.
whole franchise. Yeah, she's swept up by several pterodons. One of them actually manages to eat her, and then that pterodon is eaten by the Mosasaurus. So she is really dead there. And one
she's
thing
eaten by 2 dinosaurs.
Exactly.
There's also a detail that I noticed when watching the clip again. You can see her reaching out of the Mosasaur's mouth.
Oh God! Oh, that is wow! Wow, that's even more tragic. And something that I do have to give a lot of credit to the actress. She did her own stunts. I give her a lot of credit for that.
Hell yeah!
That is amazing.
I saw the behind the scenes of that. That was beautiful.
It too. That is absolutely amazing. That, you know, let's put it this way, that takes a lot more guts than I and probably a lot of other people would have. So yeah, basically, the pterodons are going absolutely nuts all over the place. They're smashing up everything, and Owen shows up, and he basically shoots down several of the pterodons, and Zach and Gray are just in complete awe of this guy. They they completely brush off Claire to completely fawn over this guy, and it feels kind of weird, It doesn't feel really realistic in a way. Then they'd be more...
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, to be fair, if you had a freaking family relative who's basically non-existent for most of the movie and most of their life for that matter, you would be a little gracious for the person who just saved your life in the most badass way possible.
True. Very, very, very true. So yeah, what happens is that Hoskins takes over operations, and he decides to use the Raptors to fight off the Indominus Rex, basically to prove to them that they can have military success in that and for his own personal gain and glory in that. And now we get to one of the other most iconic parts of the movie, which is the Raptor motorbike sequence. Owen's riding on his bike, and the Raptors are running along beside him, but that is not the image that most people have of this scene, because there was a viral video. I remember seeing this. I think it's still on YouTube, and it is the coolest thing ever because they placed the Raptors on motorbikes as well.
I kind of want to see that now.
It's definitely on YouTube. I think if you look up maybe Jurassic World Raptors motorbikes, you'll find it. But it is one of the coolest things ever seen. If they did it in the actual movie, it'd be completely ridiculous and definitely a jump the shark moment. But man, that definitely would have been something if they actually managed to go through that. So anyway, the dinosaurs go out. The Raptors go out to attack the Indominus Rex. But of course, with the Indominus Rex, she has so much DNA in her, she can interact with the Raptors. And now she becomes their new alpha. And basically, and Blue, Delta, Charlie, and Echo, they go nuts on the security team. They just go absolutely, and it's all done in first person with the actual visual of the security team members, and it's another really well done sequence. It feels like a spiritual successor to the long grass sequence from Lost World. It definitely gave me that vibe.
Oh yeah, it also felt very much like what was I gonna say? It was, I don't know. Either way, it was very neat. I'm also very happy the French survived.
Yeah, of course he did, and he actually shows up again in Dominion. So we'll talk more about his part in it. Yep, in that episode. That'll be in 2 weeks. But yeah, what happens is Owen finally manages to get through to one of the Raptors, but just as he does, it's blown up with a rocket launcher, which I will say this, Chris Pratt's acting in this is actually pretty good for what it is, because his look of horror after that is another good sequence. And the part with Claire driving off in the van with Owen and the kids definitely seems like it took some inspiration from the Jeep T-Rex chase from the original.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like that was kind of taken from that. So they finally go back to the visitor center where they're confronted by Hopkins, who is in the dinosaur laboratory, basically. And Hopkins gets his comeuppance when he's eaten by one of the raptors after trying to do the holdout hand motion, but it just like bites off his arm, which
it doesn't work like that.
Exactly. It's like
Screw you, guy. You pretty much were kind of a dick to them in the beginning.
Exactly. It only works for Owen. Let's do it that way. It only works for the good guys. If you're a villain, it's not going to work.
It never does.
Exactly. So Dr. Wu flees the island with all of his research, which comes into play in both Jurassic World sequels. So it's like a to be continued. So now we get to see the remaining 3 raptors attack the Indominus Rex, and the fight sequence is another really good one, showing how they're doing everything they can to go against the Indominus Rex, but she is just dominating them. She kills the 2 of them until only Blue is left, and then they come across a realization they need something with more teeth. So then Claire goes to get the T-Rex. Now,
T-Rex.
Yep, that should be the theme song for the sequence. Now, I always heard that this was supposed to be Rexy from the first one. Because if you look at, I think the scars, I think it is supposed to be, Rexy, the Tyrannosaurus Rex from the original Jurassic Park.
It could be.
I've always heard that it is,
They even say it in the summary of the script. Claire releases the Jurassic Park's veteran Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I see. So the one earlier on in like the feeding section was not Rexy.
No, that's what I'm saying. It is. They say in the summary of the script that this is Jurassic Park's OG Rex. That's in Jurassic World.
I see. So yeah, I was right with that. Okay. So basically, Claire goes to get the T-Rex with the flare, like of course Ian Malcolm and Alan Grant did in the first one. And this is the part of the movie that is really kind of ridiculous. She outruns a Tyrannosaurus Rex in high heels. It's like, okay. I guess why, for story purposes and that, it makes sense, but it really is kind of silly when you think about it.
Yeah.
Rexy has been getting slower every movie, so why not at this point?
I guess, but still, to be outrun by not just a human, but a human wearing high heel shoes is a little bit of a stretch. But despite that,
she's old at this point.
That's true. Yeah, I guess you're right, because I've been alive since '93, so I guess I can see that. But despite this,
she's probably really going up in the years.
I can see that, yeah. But yeah, despite that one little part, the fight sequence with the Indominus Rex, Blue, and Rexy is absolutely so badass. Just the way it is done, this is probably one of the best ways you could have a climax of this kind of movie. Which, when we get to the other ones, we'll talk about those. But for now, this is a really fantastic sequence right here. Just the way that, they team up against her on that. And when they finally have the Indominus Rex cornered in that, the Mosasaurus just leaps up and just wrecks her. He just rips in through her neck and just drags her in the water. And I really, that was something that was so unexpected. When I first saw it, I did not expect the ending of the fight to be like that. I figured that I would have had, Rexy take her down in some way. But of course, as the great Qui-Gon Jinn once said, there's always a bigger fish.
There always is. Qui-Gon Jinn, the legend.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, is he dead?
No, that's the
he died in Phantom Menace.
The
He dies
character.
in the Phantom Menace.
Oh, thank God. I was just like, Liam Neeson is actually
Liam
dead?
Neeson's still alive. Qui-Gon Jinn dies in Star Wars.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Just wanted to be sure.
So the movie ends with the dinosaurs basically being free in Jurassic World, with the T-Rex overseeing her new domain, and of course Jurassic World itself is entirely screwed, which we find out in the sequel, what happens to that. And yeah, for the time, in a vacuum, if you don't look at, if the other sequels never existed, this is probably the best way the Jurassic Park franchise as a whole could have ended. Now, of course, it made so much money, and it was a hit. It was a monster hit. This, I think, was the highest grossing movie of 2015. It even outgrossed Force Awakens. So, yeah, this was a huge, huge hit, and you knew that they were going to make sequels after this, but I can really see Jurassic World being the best finale for the franchise in a way. Not saying that the other two don't have their moments, but this feels like it really wrapped up everything in a nice little bow.
It feels like it could have ended here, and
Exactly.
it would have been like the greatest finale of the series. But no, they had to continue.
But it made money, and executives like money, so that's why they made sequels. And speaking of sequels, this is easily, for me, the best of the Jurassic World movies. The sequels, Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, which we are going to talk about next week and the week after, respectively, they aren't nearly as good as this. There's good moments, there's good parts, but they don't feel as maybe cohesive as this one, or as complete as this one, rather.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I think I can agree with that. Even though I haven't seen them yet, I will have to agree.
Yeah. And another thing, speaking of sequels, now it is time for the question of the week, which is, what do you think of reboot sequels, or rather, sequels that took place after a wide gap in the franchise?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them. For me, it's a mixed bag, because I feel like
It is a
it can
mixed
either
bag.
be really good or it can be really bad. And for me, the best example of that is the Star Wars sequels. I feel like the problem with the Star Wars sequel trilogy, they felt like they were writing it, blind, like writing it by the seat of their pants, which, say what you will about George Lucas and his vision of Star Wars, he at least kind of had somewhat of a cohesive vision. Not entirely cohesive. I mean, Luke and Leia make out in the first one, and then the third one, they're, brother and sister, so yikes.
I love how they reference that in the sequels, though. Like,
Yeah.
Luke just realizes that was his sister.
Yeah, his face. But yeah, I still feel that, for my part, that the Star Wars sequel trilogy is what could happen with reboot sequels, or rather, sequels that take place after a long gap of time. Because for me, it just feels like a lot of it is either, referencing stuff that only like hyper super nerds would get, or it just feels like it undermines the original trilogy in a lot of ways, which also happens with a lot of these reboot sequels in a way. They really sometimes undermine the point of the original ones. It also happens with, I'm trying to think of another good example of a sequel that came out a long, long time in the original. Dial of Destiny, the new Indiana Jones. It's like,
oh god,
seeing Harrison Ford basically being forced to redo all of his roles. And if you've noticed, that's all of his acting nowadays. I mean, he was Han Solo, then he reprised his role as Deckard. Now he's Indiana Jones. I mean, what's next? The Mosquito Coast 2? Although probably not,
Lord.
Because he dies in that one.
Oh,
It's a really good movie, by the way, his best one. But yeah, to me, again, that's what one of the problems with the reboot or legendary sequels is that, for the most part, they feel like they're just grasping at straws. They're trying to replicate the magic of these original movies without knowing what makes the originals so good. It feels like they're trying to copy it, like it's a copy of a copy, basically. And a lot of times they miss things.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have to think about that?
So remind me of the question again.
About like reboot sequels, or rather sequels that came out after a long period of gap. For example, like the Terminator sequels. That's another good example. Like, you had Terminator Genesis, which was really not a good movie at all. I mean, Jai Courtney in that is not Kyle Reese or anything. So yeah, it does not work.
I will 100% hold Salvation to a high regard, because
Salvation is good, but I'm talking more about
was good.
I'm talking more about
anything after that was bad.
Yeah, I'm talking about like Genesis and Dark Fate. Like, those would be two examples of like what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So let me see here. Like, on the one hand, you could get stuff like Transformers, the Bayverse series. Which, interesting fact on that, there are 2 Transformers that ultimately live throughout their debut. One of them is Barricade, who was put on the Transformers Hall of Fame, apparently. Fun fact. And Dino, aka quote unquote Mirage. I'm still calling him Dino because it's a better name. Also, guys.
Hell yeah, it is.
Guys, a kick ass.
Definitely better. It just
Yeah.
sounds better.
Yeah. I also like Steelbane, but she was only in one movie and I haven't seen it yet. Anyway, yeah, you could go that route, but you could also do something like Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which, even though it's a TV series, it's still overall canon to the Star Wars lore.
It is, and I still will hold that to high regard.
Oh,
the movie was boring,
Clone Wars is the way to do it right, I feel.
Yeah.
The movie was boring, but the TV show was great.
The series is good. I will say that the series that is how you can do something like that and actually make it work.
I will say, I will defend the movie a bit because it did have some very high positives, even though it was formulaic, even for the time. But I will say this, it really laid the groundwork. It really got me hopeful because, oh my gosh, it brought so many things to it that I will forever hold in high regard. Man, the clones, the Ahsoka, let's see. I know this wasn't her debut, quote unquote. She actually appeared in the Gennady Tartakovsky Clone Wars, but Asajj Ventress here, oh man, that was wild.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I will say that you could ultimately undermine the original and ultimately like just do your own thing for better or worse. But when it's for better, man, it can sometimes be pretty great, and sometimes there are stuff that ultimately does do what the original ultimately did. What made it so fascinating, like say Animaniacs, for the most part, is still pretty good. Like it's clearly cut down a little bit, but it very much still keeps what ultimately made Animaniacs so amazing in the first place. And this is a recent one, but I recently saw Gremlins: Secret of the Mogwai, and honestly, there are hints of a season 2 coming out, but for what I saw, man, it kind of makes things fascinating. It's kind of makes me interested in seeing Gremlins 2 after I watched Gremlins 1 today, because
definitely have to you definitely have to check out Gremlins 2. It really it's like it's a sequel to the original, and it's also kind of a spoof of the original. It's probably is one of the most chaotic movies ever made. It is like the closest thing to a live action Looney Tunes movie ever made. Way more than both live action, or all 3 rather, live action Looney Tune movies we got. It is so off the wall, and it just does whatever it wants, and it's proud of it.
Yeah.
I highly, highly recommend Gremlins 2. It is an insane time, but it is fun. It is just pure enjoyment. I highly recommend it.
I actually hear you say Looney Tunes, and I'm like, why do I suddenly get Looney Tunes meets Kill Bill? But like, why am I reminded of The Mask, basically?
Oh God. Oh
yeah,
God.
I kind of see that. Yeah.
I like Son of the Mask. That was a bad one.
Yeah. I think that's the gold standard for the worst ones. I think that is considered widely to be the worst legacy sequel, shall we say? Now it is time for the patent-pending Dragoness Scale, where we will talk about the Jurassic World dinosaurs. That includes the raptors, Rexy again, the Indominus Rex, the Mosasaurus et al. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to give them I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10. I really, really would want to give them a perfect score. I really, really do. The only thing putting it back for me is I feel like the Indominus Rex needed a little bit more screen time. Oh, wait. Oh, my God. I can't believe we almost forgot about this. They have the Brontosauruses that are attacked by the Indominus Rex, and she's not doing it for food. She's doing it for sport. the Indominus Rex that I think Owen and Claire cradle while it's dying. I think that's one of the only animatronic dinosaurs in this movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
yeah. And like I say, I cannot believe I forgot about them until now, but thankfully we got to them. But yeah,
Good,
I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10 because this is such a step up from the last two with how they depicted the dinosaurs. I mean, the raptors feel like characters again. The Indominus Rex is probably the most threatening dinosaur in the entire Jurassic Park franchise. I will say that right now. She is like, I think she might even edge out the Velociraptors from the first one. But again, their designs are great. The pterodons are great, especially the altered pterodons, like the ones with like the T-Rex faces and whatnot.
I think those are actually legit dinosaurs. Like, I forget what species they're called, but like that sort of thing is like legit. They like legit found fossils with like little pterodactyls or pteranodons that look like they have T-Rex faces. You know?
Dimorphodon.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I always thought it was like a InGen doing more genetic splicing, but more you know. So yeah, the Mosasaurus, of course, is really fantastic, and really just in general, I would really like to give it a perfect score. The only reason I'm not is the Indominus Rex kind of disappears for a lot of the movie. I think from the sequence when the pterodons get loose to the part where the raptors go out to confront her, she is not on screen at all. But granted, I'm not putting that against them as a whole, but I feel like the first one is, again, the better movie, the more iconic movie, and it is the one that will live on forever. I hate to say that, but Jurassic Park is a much better movie than Jurassic World, and it is what most people will think of when they think of dinosaurs. This is probably one of the better sequels to Jurassic Park, although admittedly, I do have a really, really big soft spot for Jurassic Park 3, but yeah, I have to give them a 9 out of 10. I really, really would love to give them a perfect 10, but I know deep down I really just kind of can't.
Yeah.
Angron?
All right. Now, for the most part, I've been giving a lot of the other dinosaurs from the first three Jurassic Park movies, like 1 6 out of 10, like 2 7s out of 10. This one here, however, is where things ultimately turn around a little bit because not only do they have character, but here, oh man, it like gone are the animatronics, which does not detract from anything at all. But yeah, I am ultimately going to have to say this right here is an 8 out of 10. Absolutely.
Nice.
Because, yeah, again, there are many things holding it back here. Like, again, like the characters for the most part and like some of the drama and whatnot. But the dinosaurs here, absolutely worth it. Like, it feels like a park. It feels like someplace I could actually go to. Like, oh man, it reminds me a lot of SeaWorld and like again, some of the zoos I've been to, the Houston Zoo, the San Diego Zoo, the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Oh man, it is wild. And SeaWorld. I've been to SeaWorld too. A shame they're not doing orcas anymore, but anyways, yeah, I am absolutely going to give them an 8 out of 10 because here they're given more character. Blue especially, and some of the raptors especially. The Indominus is a really great villain. Oh man, there's like pretty much everything Lud said and then some for me. But yeah, again, they're a little inaccurate science-wise, and the movie does hamper it down a little bit. But otherwise, yeah, solid 8 out of 10 for me.
All right, Stryker?
I might be biased since this is kind of my favorite in the series, but I'm gonna give them a 10.
Nice.
Whoa, nice.
The pterosaur attack was like what sealed the movie for me as my favorite.
Nice.
Nice.
Plus the of course, like the scene with the Indominus Rex attacking the
Raptors.
No, not the Raptors. It was near the beginning of the movie with the
the
crew
workers, the crew, the security team,
the security team, that scene with the security team. I also really enjoyed the effects were so good.
Yeah.
Okay, Math.
I'm gonna give you the rating for after this. Basically, the first time I watched this movie in theaters, my reaction was, "Oh, good lord, yes, the dinosaurs have personalities again. It's a miracle." 9, obviously.
Nice.
Nice.
It was so good to see that these were actual characters again, rather than just props. And
Oh hell yeah!
Definitely.
The more blue there is on screen, the better the movie is. If they
Yeah.
could have just had the movie be blue, the other raptors, and the Indominus, like 90% focus that, I think that this would have been a much better movie for me. And especially the sequels should have done stuff like that, but they didn't. They went the other way.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that when we get to them.
And this feels like the best version of these dinosaurs and the most personality they have, and it really does make them feel like actual living, breathing characters. It just goes so off the wall. That's why it's a 9 instead of a 10 at times. But otherwise, I really love the way that they did these characters, especially Blue.
Yeah, I could definitely say it. And Evie?
9.
Whoa, okay.
It's just for Blue.
Yeah,
I
Blue
can
is
see that. I can
the
definitely
highlight
see
of
that.
this entire movie.
Yeah, probably the highlight of the entire Jurassic World franchise, to be honest, is Blue, because she is a good girl.
She is a good girl.
Yep. So, if you have any questions, or if you want to see a spin-off of the Margarita Man fighting off dinosaurs, you can feel free to email us at FieryDiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/FieryDiscourse. Next week, we'll be talking about the 2018 movie Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And until then, take care.
Peace.
So,
Adios.